Hello everyone. Welcome back to our Fluent English podcast channel. Today we have another lesson that will help you improve your listening and speaking English skills. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It really helps us out and ensures you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Your support means a lot, and we appreciate every single one of you. Let's dig in. Hello, dear students, and welcome back to Fluent English. I want to know, does this situation sound familiar? Can you relate? That feeling when you realize, I can understand English, but I can't speak it fluently. I get so many emails, messages, and questions from students all over the world, and the overwhelming majority of them, one way or another, point to this exact, almost universal problem. Do you feel like you've spent countless hours, days, weeks, years studying English, mastering its rules and nuances, but suddenly, when the crucial moment arrives, when you actually need to speak, your mind goes completely blank, the words just won't come out. You suddenly forget all the grammar you worked so hard to learn. You start stumbling over the pronunciation of even familiar sounds, and all your hard-earned vocabulary seems to go right down the drain. By the way, go down the drain is a great idiom meaning that something is wasted or lost completely. If this description feels painfully familiar, then this lesson is definitely for you. I'm going to help you find a way out of your current struggles with spoken English, and I intend to arm you with specific, practical skills that will help build your confidence and achieve that much-desired fluency in speaking English. Now, before I dive into the specific tips, let's discuss why this happens in the first place. After all, we need to understand the root of the problem before we can effectively work on solving it. Right? Plus, throughout the lesson, we've highlighted key vocabulary, useful phrases, and idioms. So this lesson isn't just aimed at improving your spoken English skills. At the same time, we can also work on your listening skills, refine your pronunciation, and expand your vocabulary. So, back to our main question. Why do so many language learners experience this deeply frustrating feeling? They can understand English, but can't speak it fluently when the time comes. Well, mostly it's because understanding a language, whether by listening or reading, requires using receptive skills. Most English learners quite rightly focus on language input. They watch movies with or without subtitles, binge watch YouTube videos, follow TV shows, all in English. They listen to English language podcasts on their commute to work or school. They read books, articles, blogs in English, trying to immerse themselves in the language environment as much as possible. And that's an absolutely fantastic approach. Many of us do this, and I strongly recommend, don't stop doing it. It's a really great way to build vocabulary, intuitively grasp grammatical structures, and get a better overall understanding of how the language functions in real life. But, and there's always an important but here, this approach alone doesn't significantly increase your speaking fluency. Why? Because, unlike understanding, speaking requires using productive skills. You need to play a much more active role in the learning process, and by that, I primarily mean practice, and more practice. You need to consciously shift your focus and concentrate more on output, that is, actively using the language, not just passively receiving it. We need a healthy, good balance between input and output, but unfortunately, opportunities for language output, for real speaking practice, can be much harder to find than sources of language input. It's not easy or accessible for everyone to spend an extended period in an English-speaking country, find a personal English tutor, or make an English-speaking best friend you can chat with for hours. That's why I meet so many students who are absolute grammar geniuses. Their theoretical knowledge of grammatical rules is often better than most native speakers. However, they just can't speak fluently. They know all the theory inside and out, but when it comes to spontaneously applying that knowledge in practice, in a real conversation, they struggle significantly. This gap between passive knowledge and active use, that's the very wall we're going to break down. Today, I have 6 practical, actionable tips for you. The first one is completely free, and it's talking to yourself. This is something I actively did myself when I was learning Spanish, and it was hugely beneficial. One of the simplest and most accessible things you can do to immediately increase your language output is to talk to yourself. And you can start doing this right now, this very minute. Yes, at first, it might feel a bit strange or even silly, but it really works almost like magic. That's how well talking to yourself helps improve your fluency and smoothness of speech. It helps form the neural pathways responsible for speech production. Besides, you're having an internal dialogue or thinking about things throughout the day anyway, so why not do it in English? Most of us, though not all, have that little inner voice in our heads when we think. Some people think differently, but most have it. That little voice most likely speaks in your native language. Try consciously switching it over, see if you can come up with an English alter ego for your inner voice. If you find it hard to catch that inner voice or switch it, then you'll have to speak out loud. No one will judge you, especially if you're home alone. For example, narrate your actions. I'm watching TV. I'm washing the dishes. I'm picking up a plate. I'm scrubbing it with a sponge and soap. I hope my husband remembers to bring pizza for dinner tonight. I really strongly recommend speaking out loud specifically, because you need to physically practice making new, unfamiliar sounds and feel how the words are literally formed in your mouth. But narrating silently, in your head, is a great way to start, and it's especially convenient if there are lots of people around you and speaking aloud isn't appropriate. This small but regular adjustment to your thought process can help you significantly increase the amount of active English use throughout your day. And it's particularly valuable if you have absolutely no one to practice speaking with, and you can't financially afford to hire someone for conversation practice. Now, I want to make an important further addition to this first point, and it's a way you can literally supercharge your vocabulary during this practice. No joke, I used this myself, and it was one of my first targeted actions aimed at drastically increasing my vocabulary because it really works. When you're narrating in your head or out loud about everything you do or see during the day, pay close attention to moments when a specific word or phrase comes up that you just don't know in English. Keep a vocabulary journal handy. Back in the day, I think I would have advised people to write words down in a real paper notebook. Nowadays, there are plenty of apps for this. You can use the standard Notes app on your phone. You can program your smartwatch to record your voice if that's more convenient for you. For example, what if I'm walking down the street and realize I don't know the word for traffic light in Italian? That's the language I'm currently learning. I'd do something like this because I love using my smartphone for these things. First, I'd ask Siri, or another voice assistant, to save the word to my notes. Hey Siri, add traffic light to my notes. Done. Simple as that, right? Then I'll ask her to set a reminder for 6 p.m. so I don't forget to review my new vocabulary for the day. Hey Siri, set a reminder for 6 p.m. tonight with the text, translate and review my new vocabulary. Okay, I've added that. Perfect. So, tonight at 6 p.m., when I'm likely already back home, I'll get a reminder to review the new vocabulary I added to my list today. Notice, I didn't have to type a single thing. It took so little effort, but I know that this way, every day, I'll be guaranteed to expand my vocabulary with words that are relevant to me, that surround me in my daily life, and that I actively notice I don't know in English, or whatever language you're learning. After you find the translation, you absolutely need to practice using these new words and sentences, saying them out loud. Okay, that was my free, super accessible way to increase your English output. Now for tip number 2, talk to a tutor. Yes, this isn't free, but this tip is incredibly important and effective. Why is talking to a qualified tutor often better than just talking to yourself or even talking to another friendly native English speaker? In my opinion, there are 3 key reasons. First, you can guide the conversation. You can tell the tutor exactly how you'd like the session to go, what topics interest you, and, what's especially valuable, you can recreate and work through specific situations from the past where you felt you failed, that you couldn't express yourself properly. Maybe someone at a recent networking event asked you what you do for a living, and you froze, got flustered, felt awkward, and ended up giving a very simplistic, lackluster version of what you actually do. A version that didn't do you justice at all. When you hire a tutor for one-on-one sessions, you can specifically work through scenarios just like that, so you never have to struggle for words in a similar situation again. Second, and these next 2 points are truly critical for progress, corrections. You need someone who doesn't just speak English, but who deeply understands the structure of the English language, who can accurately and tactfully correct you when you make mistakes. These could be errors in grammar, incorrect vocabulary choices, pronunciation issues, or, perhaps even more importantly, assessing whether you're speaking clearly, understandably, and naturally for a native speaker. A tutor can provide feedback not just on grammar, but also on intonation, fluency, and the appropriateness of phrases. I don't recommend striving for absolute, 100% perfection, that can be counterproductive. Instead, your main goal is for people to easily and effortlessly understand what you're saying. And number 3, with a tutor, you are in a safe, supportive space where you can and should ask for feedback, where you can and should make mistakes without fear of judgment. You won't be ridiculed for errors. You won't feel awkward or stupid. A professional tutor is someone who constantly encounters the typical mistakes English learners make. It's literally their job to help you overcome them. And thanks to all this accumulated experience, they can give you very targeted, personalized advice for quick and noticeable improvement. It's an atmosphere of trust, where mistakes aren't failures, but stepping stones to growth. Now, let's briefly recall our school days. Surely, we all had at least one teacher we didn't like. Maybe we didn't like them, or they didn't like us, or there just wasn't any chemistry. We didn't click. I personally had several such teachers, some of whom, frankly, absolutely should not have been working with children, considering how obviously they hated those very children. Therefore, for many students, the fear of finding the wrong tutor, one they don't connect with or who proves ineffective, prevents them from even starting to look for the right one. Because, unlike school, here we're talking about something you're paying for with your own money. You're making a financial investment in your education. So the thought of spending an hour, and paying for it, with a teacher you end up disliking or who isn't a good fit seems like a costly mistake. Yes, it requires investment, but think of it as an investment in your confidence, your communication skills, and potentially, your future. Alright, tip number 3 involves writing. One of the best ways to prepare yourself for speaking in any potential situation is to write down what you'd like to say beforehand, before you actually find yourself in that situation and have to speak. Take some time to formulate and write down all the sentences you plan or anticipate saying, and then be sure to practice saying them out loud so they sound natural. Now, I certainly don't expect you to constantly carry a notebook and pen around and write down everything you want to say right before you open your mouth. That's just not practical in real life. But it's a very effective exercise that can and should be added to your regular daily English practice. The best way to approach this is to think about specific situations and potential conversation topics that might arise, especially those that personally interest or concern you. Because learning English should be, as much as possible, a fun and engaging process. Also, think about questions or conversation opportunities that frequently come up for you. In English, we use the term elevator pitch. This refers to the hypothetical situation where you're trying to sell an idea, product, or yourself to someone important you happen to meet in an elevator. It's an American English term. In British English, it would be a lift pitch. The point is, you have a very limited amount of time while the elevator is moving, so you need to deliver your message quickly, clearly, and effectively. Try coming up with such concise yet impactful elevator pitch versions for answers to the questions you're most often asked. I'm thinking of classic examples like, "Where are you from?" Instead of a one-word answer, you could prepare something like, "Well, you can probably hear from my accent that I'm not from around here. I was actually born in Italy, but then my family moved to France when I was 4. I went to college in the US, so now I speak with a slight American accent." Write it down, practice the pronunciation, because you know you'll be asked this often. Another common question, "What do you do?" or "How did you learn English so well?" You can start by preparing answers to simple, everyday small talk questions and gradually increase the level of difficulty, moving on to more complex topics. This will help gradually build your confidence and, over time, significantly improve the fluency and preparedness of your speech. You see, I myself, for example, am not very good at spontaneously expressing strong, well-argued opinions, so sometimes, if I'm going to an event where I know I might be asked about some hot-button, potentially controversial topic, I try to prepare in advance, think through, and even write down my main points. This helps me feel much more relaxed and confident, or at least, less anxious. I'm not one of those people who can just, straight off the bat, deliver an eloquent, well-structured opinion. Straight off the bat, another useful idiom meaning immediately, without any prior preparation or thought. That's why those of us who need it, require preparation. Written preparation. It doesn't mean you'll read from a paper in a real conversation, but it structures your thoughts and gives you ready-made phrasing. It's also an excellent idea to prepare these written answers and then present them in a session with your tutor to ask for their feedback and suggestions for improvement. So many of my students have come to me with topics they often have to explain or even defend their position on. Almost like answering a challenge. For example, why they fast during Ramadan. That's one question my Muslim students received quite often. The same goes for questions about why they wear a hijab, why they chose veganism and prefer not to consume animal products, or why they decided to leave their home country when they love it so much. There are many really complex, personal, and sometimes sensitive questions that you might want to take a step back from, think about calmly, and formulate an answer in advance, so you can give an honest, thoughtful response that you're genuinely proud of and comfortable sharing. And the biggest, most frequent request I get from students in the context of written preparation is, of course, self-introductions. Okay, number 4. This is something I've talked about again, and again, and again on this channel, and I genuinely believe it's absolutely the right way forward for most language learners. Focus on fluency, not perfection or grammatical accuracy. Fluency is more important than accuracy practically every time in real communication. Your goal is to be understood, for communication to happen, not to get a standing ovation as a grammar genius. Perfectionism often paralyzes and prevents speaking altogether. For me, this means, first and foremost, that you need to start getting comfortable making mistakes. It's normal, it's part of the process. If you constantly avoid conversations with people out of fear of making a grammatical or vocabulary mistake, you simply won't have anything to learn from. You're depriving yourself of precious opportunities for practice and growth. Nobody likes making mistakes, of course. It can be awkward, embarrassing, and it can temporarily make us lose self-confidence. Learning, and especially speaking, another language is a very personal, sensitive topic for many. But consciously stepping out of your comfort zone and making mistakes while speaking is really one of the best and most effective things you can do to genuinely improve your fluency. And if you can, I understand not everyone can, and it depends on personality, but if you can, try to approach your mistakes with a sense of humor. Try to see them not as a reason for shame, but as an opportunity to laugh with yourself, not at yourself. That's important, and with your conversation partner if they're friendly. Some of my best and funniest stories in Spanish are related to the ridiculous mistakes I made while learning Spanish. I love those stories. They're so dear to me now. They make great anecdotes I can tell at any dinner party when speaking Spanish, and I'm guaranteed to make the whole room laugh. I consciously chose not to be overly embarrassed in those moments when I made those mistakes. I decided to take a step back, look at the situation from the outside, and laugh at the absurdity or ambiguity of what I said. But I also understand now that not everyone has the same language learning context. I learned Spanish because I wanted to learn Spanish. I genuinely liked the language, I enjoyed the process of learning it. But many people learn English because they feel they have to learn it for their career, studies, or immigration. They feel they can't move forward in their lives until they master the skill of speaking English at the required level. So I understand that in such a situation, it might be a bit harder to laugh at yourself when you might not even feel much desire to learn the language in the first place. In that case, at least try to view every mistake as a valuable learning opportunity. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this mistake? How can I say it correctly next time? And the good news is that most native English speakers, as well as other English learners, are usually quite supportive and willing to help when you need it. Most people are much more tolerant and kind than you might think. You just need to ask for it. If I'm talking to a non-native speaker, and they're making a lot of mistakes, I usually won't correct them unless they explicitly ask me to, because it might interrupt their flow of thought or seem impolite. So, if you want to receive corrections, you can politely say something like, "By the way, if I make a mistake, please feel free to tell me. I'd really appreciate it." And then, circling back to our point number 1, talking to yourself and keeping a vocabulary journal, I strongly recommend keeping a notebook, phone, or voice recorder ready to quickly jot down notes whenever you receive a correction from a conversation partner or tutor, preferably right after you receive it, so you can revisit that information later. Analyze it, and reinforce the correct version. Number 5. This method isn't for everyone, but it works brilliantly for some students, especially those who are good auditory learners and have a knack for imitation. And I've personally seen it in action, and the results can be amazing. It's the shadowing technique. Shadowing essentially means copying the speech of other native English speakers in real time or with a slight delay. It's imitation, mimicry. When you're purposefully learning new words or phrases, or just randomly watching a video or listening to audio in English, try repeating aloud what you hear, copying the speaker as closely as possible. You don't need to deeply analyze sentence structure, verb tenses, or complex grammar in the initial phase. Just repeat the words, phrases, and sounds, trying to imitate the intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation. By repeating words and phrases this way, you activate your mind for more effective absorption of new information. It helps you understand the speaker more easily upon subsequent listening. It trains your articulation muscles, getting them used to new sounds and their combinations. It also helps you practice and internalize natural word stress, phrase rhythm, and the overall melody of English speech. I've noticed some of my students actively engage me in shadowing during our sessions or use short videos for this. They usually take short, minute-long or even shorter, videos often posted on TikTok or Instagram Reels. They listen carefully to the video several times, and then try to repeat exactly what is said in the video, exactly as it's said, with all the nuances of pronunciation and intonation. Again, I'll repeat, this technique isn't for everyone. Not everyone enjoys it or finds it suitable, but it can be really, really effective for improving pronunciation and fluency if you're willing to give it a try. It's quite a big topic in itself, so let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in a separate, more detailed lesson on this shadowing technique, or perhaps I could guide you through a practical exercise, and I'll be more than happy to prepare such material for you. Just let me know. If there's no particular interest, I won't worry about it and we'll move on to other topics. And finally, number 6. This point is simply fantastic in its usefulness, and I consider it absolutely essential. It's something I make all my students do at the very beginning of our pronunciation and fluency courses. It's recording yourself speaking. Have you ever heard an audio or video recording of yourself speaking, even in your native language, and been genuinely surprised or even shocked by how you actually sound from the outside? I certainly have. As a child, I used to enjoy creating my own radio shows, recording them first onto cassette tapes. Yes, that vintage. And then, a bit later, onto CDs. Yes, CDs came after cassettes. And I remember being amazed at how different my own voice sounded on the recording compared to how I heard it from the inside. I always felt I sounded much more prim and proper than I perceived myself. And this slight disconnect between your internal perception of your own voice and how you objectively sound to others is really important to recognize when learning another language. It's like seeing yourself from an outside perspective. Nowadays, I constantly hear my voice because I'm always filming YouTube videos and recording audio and video materials for my courses. The first few times I listened to and reviewed my recordings, I felt incredibly awkward and cringed a lot at how formal and so British I sounded. But now, after so many years, I feel really confident with my voice. I know exactly how I'm going to sound on a recording. It's no longer a surprise to me. Although, I'll be honest, sometimes I still review my videos and think, "Oh, I spoke a bit fast there," or "my voice sounded too quiet here," or "oops, I think I mispronounced that word" without realizing it during recording. I truly believe it's crucial to regularly record yourself speaking English, so that, at the very least, you start getting used to and comfortable with how you sound in that language. It's an objective tool for self-diagnosis. Then, more importantly, you can also start noticing specific things to improve: recurring errors, filler words, like like unnatural pauses, problems with pronouncing certain sounds or words, speech rate. Furthermore, recording yourself is a fantastic benchmark for tracking your progress. Because the level you're at now will hopefully be the lowest level you'll ever be at. Your English will only get better as you continue to learn, practice more and more. Hopefully, in a year, or even sooner, you'll be able to listen to the recording you, I really hope, will surely make after watching this lesson and think, "Oh my gosh, bless my past self, I was trying so hard, but wow. How much I've improved my English since then." In my pronunciation improvement program, we have students at the very beginning read aloud a specially prepared text that contains most of the key sounds of English and the pronunciation features we teach in the program. They record themselves on audio or video. They can optionally post this recording in our private group for feedback or keep it private just for themselves. And then they record the same text again at the end of the 12-week program to clearly see and hear the difference, to notice their progress. And this is so important because sometimes you improve gradually, in small steps, and don't even realize it until you compare the before and after. So here's my little challenge for you today. And it conveniently incorporates our point number 3, written preparation, and, indeed, point number 6, recording yourself. Choose one frequently asked question, probably your self-introduction, "Tell me about yourself," or the answer to "What do you do?" would be a good start. Record yourself on audio or video reading your prepared answer. Save this recording somewhere safe where you know you can access it again after some time. And then set yourself a calendar reminder for exactly 1 year from today. In 1 year, I would love for you to record yourself again reading the same text and compare the 2 recordings to see how much you've improved in that time. And then promise me one thing? You'll come back to this video in a year and leave a comment letting me know if you noticed a difference in your speech. I'll be thrilled to hear about your success. Okay, that's all for today. And remember, the key to success is finding the right balance between receiving information and actively using it. Don't be afraid to speak. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's your path to fluency. Good luck with your practice.